Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 52 of season 3 of Brodie Sports Talk. My name is Sean Morgan, and I am joined by Caleb Walgren, Derek Rusnick. You guys happy to be here?
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to talk about what we're going to talk about tonight.
It's going to be good because if you've been listening this week, after we did our power rankings, we've gone through and done our season predictions, starting out with Caleb and then going to Derek. And now we are here to my season predictions. And I have, I think, some interesting takes, some maybe a little bit spicier than others, some safer opinions and thoughts. And we'll just run right through it. So I'll talk about how I think each division is going to play out, ask you guys to maybe chime in once or twice, and then I'll go through and predict how I think the playoffs are going to go, as well as who I think are going to win specific awards regarding, Rookie of the Year, Offensive, Defensive, and then some of the bigger awards as well. So let's go ahead and let's kick things off with actually who I have finishing. I'm going to kind of do similar to what Caleb did for his episode, who I have finishing as the worst teams in the NFL. So the worst teams that I have in the AFC are going to be the Texans and the Jets, I think, to nobody's surprise. And then the two worst teams I have in the NFC are going to be the Lions and the Giants. Do you guys see any of those teams doing any better than being in the basement?
I like the Lions, but I don't see them getting too far out of the basement.
Interestingly enough, I actually go ahead, Caleb.
Somehow I want to be able to say that there's positive aspirations happening for the Jets. I just don't know that we're there this year. I think if they were able to acquire like a top 4 draft pick and maybe work more on their defense, we would see more.
I think it's rough because the division is relatively tough compared to some of the others, and it's hard for them to find opportunities where they're going to get wins. It really is. But I do have. Let's go ahead and actually go down some of the divisions. So for the AFC, in the AFC North, I have the Browns winning the division at 12-5. I have the Ravens coming in at 10-7. They actually end up snagging the final wildcard spot. I have the Steelers coming in at 9-8 and just narrowly missing the playoffs. I actually have them doing best in the division at 4-2. Their schedule is a bit rougher outside of some of the divisional games. And then I have the Bengals coming in at 4-13. So I know that you guys are not high on the Browns, whereas I am. I do think that they've built on a lot of momentum. And I know we've talked about that in previous episodes, so I'm not going to wax too much more poetic on it. But I just want to explain why I think the Ravens aren't going to win the division. And I think that the Ravens are incredibly dependent on Lamar Jackson to be healthy the entire year for them to have a good season. I don't think that happens. I think that there may be a bit of a period where he maybe misses 2 to 4 weeks, potentially even 5 weeks, and that offense sputters. And the games are close. They have a good defense. They have a great defense. But I still feel like that offense is going to struggle because nobody can realistically replace Lamar Jackson in just about any offense. I don't think there's anybody in the NFL that functions the same way that he does. The closest one I think maybe is Deshaun Watson, and that's an entirely different beast. So I do worry about that, and I think that ends up contributing to the reason why they falter and otherwise don't win the division. So moving on to the AFC South, I do have the Colts winning it at 10-7. I actually have them sweeping the division 6-0. I have the Titans coming in at 8-9, the Jags coming in at 5-12, and then the Texans at 2-15. Now, originally I had a lot higher opinions of the Texans. I still think the roster is okay. I know we did our team previews, and I did say that they were probably going to win above expectation, but I looked at their schedule a little bit greater. I kind of changed my mind. I do see that they don't have a tremendous amount of opportunities to win football games. And I think that the Jags are going to kind of eat away at matchups that they otherwise would get. I know that, Derek, you are sold on the Titans. But do you see the Jags finishing with 5 wins? Does that sound about right to you, or do you think they get a little more, a little less than that?
I could see them winning 5 games. They have a good quarterback now. I want to see what Urban Meyer does with his decision making during a game. See what, if he's really the CEO of the team, or if he is going to be more hands on.
I think it's fair. Let's move on to the East. So in the AFC East, I have the Bills coming in at 13-4. They end up actually getting the number 2 seed in the AFC. No surprise that when we get to the next division, you'll understand why. I actually have the Patriots coming in 11-6. I actually have them doing better than the Bills in the division. I think that they split the series against the Bills, and I actually think the Bills end up dropping a game to the Dolphins. So I have the Patriots going 11-6. I am all in on the Mac Jones train. I have the Dolphins missing the playoffs narrowly. I have them as the second team out. Coming in at 9-8, 3-3. I'm not sold on Tua. I don't think the Dolphins are sold on Tua either. And so I think their defense helps them stay competitive, but they otherwise don't make the playoffs once again, which kind of puts an interesting spotlight on Flores and whether or not he has actually been as successful as maybe Dolphins fans and people around the NFL expected. And then I have the Jets coming in at 2-15. Moving on, finally, to the AFC West, I have the Chiefs coming in at 13-4, which is they end up winning a tiebreaker against the Bills to take the division. I have the Chargers coming in at 12-5, and they end up getting the 5th seed. I have the Broncos coming in at 8-9, which is, I think, just enough to get Fangio fired, because when we talked about it's playoffs or bust, if you want to go back and listen to that episode. And then I have the Raiders coming in at 6-11. So technically, out of all of the divisions, this one is the most competitive. So they don't really have a traditional basement dweller. So that does leave my AFC playoff teams again as the Chiefs with the number 1 seed, Bills number 2, the Browns number 3, Colts number 4, and then the wild card teams at number 5 are the Chargers, 6 the Patriots, and 7 the Ravens. So out of the both of you, I don't have the Steelers. I'm not sold on the Steelers. Sell me on the Steelers. Please, really quick, sell me on the Steelers. Why am I wrong here?
I think in general, if we're trying to sell you on the Steelers, it's going to be about their defense. That you have T.J. Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick. You still have Cameron Hayward in the middle, nose tackle. I don't think that I'm going to easily be able to sell you on, hey, here's what we're going to see from their offense, because we haven't seen it yet. So, they have a new offensive coordinator. They needed to have a change. They did do some work on their offensive line. And I do think that they still have solid skill position players around an aging Ben Roethlisberger.
I mean, this is the same. This is the Steelers team that in the final stretch of 5 games, allowed 20-plus points to Washington football team, a Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals, and then lost the end to the Cleveland Browns. That's fine. Defense-wise, I get that they're one of the better defenses, but I feel that inconsistency is going to plague them again this season. And they do have a moderately tough schedule. But I can see it. I can legitimately say, again, I feel like the Browns are my more likely to do better in the division. Let's go to the NFC. So really quick, let's start. Let's go in reverse. We'll start with the NFC West. So in the NFC West, I have the Rams winning the division at 14-3. I have the 49ers at 13-4, the Seahawks at 12-5, and the Cardinals at 8-9. So top to bottom, this is the best division in the NFL, and I think the records speak for itself. I think that the NFC West feasts on the NFC North in a lot of different ways to really pad their win total. So I ended up with the Rams at the number 1 seed in the NFL, and then in the NFC, and then the 49ers and Seahawks both making the playoffs with the 5th and 6th seeds, respectively. For the NFC East, I have the... This is gross, guys. This is really gross. I have the Cowboys... I had the Cowboys winning the division at 10-7. I think they go 5-1. I think they split the series with the Eagles, and I think they sweep the football team and the Giants. I have the Eagles also coming in at 10-7. I think they lose a game to the Giants because we always seem to find a way to lose some stupid game to the Giants, and we lose to the Cowboys. So I end up having the better divisional record via tiebreaker. I think the Washington football team finishes 7-9, and I think the Giants regress. I think Danny Dimes regresses, and they end up finishing 3-13. And I think they end up trying to look for a new quarterback solution going forward, potentially with this higher draft pick. We'll see what happens for that. I'm not sold on Washington. I think the offense, there's still too many question marks at quarterback. I don't think Fitzpatrick is going to be the answer the entire season. And I think their defense wins them games that they otherwise would lose. But I do think they regress a little bit back to the mean. And then we do see, as is tradition for the NFC East, a different divisional winner. Moving up to the South, we have the Bucs 12-5. They're the only playoff team I have in this division. I think the Saints go 9-8. I have the Falcons going 8-9. I feel as though I'm not sold on Jameis for a full season. And I think this offense is good, and I think the defense is fine. I don't really like their schedule a whole heck of a lot. I think there are some very, very losable games. And I think they end up dropping some that you otherwise wouldn't expect them to. I do think the Bucs sweep the series. I think they actually lose to the Cowboys when at home. I think that there are I have them going 3-6 against winning teams, basically. So I think their schedule ends up biting them in the butt. Finally, let's go to the NFC North, where I have the Packers going 11-6, 6-0 in the division. And getting the third seed. And I want Caleb's opinion on this. So, Caleb, here are the games I have the Packers losing. I have them losing on the road to the 49ers. I have them losing on the road to the Cardinals. I have them losing on the road to the Chiefs. I have them losing at home to the Rams. I have them losing on the road to the Falcons. And I have them losing at home to the Browns. And then finally... Hang on. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I think you said 6.
So, and then ultimately, when we get to the playoffs, we'll talk about, I still think they make the playoffs, but I have one final loss. Which of those, let's put the cards one aside, because I think that's one of where Kyler Murray has a huge game. You guys have a tough schedule. You really do have a tough schedule. Like, do you see any of those games being unrealistic losses?
I mean, unrealistic is probably a bit of a stretch. I don't want to say that the NFL is any given Sunday, even though it kind of is. There's so many plays that games hinge upon. I do think that in general, I think the Packers are going to come out at home on Christmas, be able to beat the Browns. Maybe that's me buying into too much of Packers are used to playing on holidays because we've played the Lions probably a handful of times. So it's at least a organizational, and it's not an anomaly. Like I feel like it will be for the Browns to play on a holiday. But that's really kind of oddity about that game, not necessarily the X's and O's. So, say realistic? No. I think that in general, I'm nervous about the game in San Francisco in Week 3 because the 49ers always find a way to beat Green Bay when we're there. So, Rodgers playing in San Francisco is what Favre playing in Dallas was. It's kind of like a kryptonite situation.
No, I think that's absolutely fair. So let me recap then the NFC playoff teams I have coming in number 1 seed. I have the Rams, the Bucs getting the number 2 seed, the Packers number 3, and then the Cowboys rounding out the divisional winners. And then I have my wild card teams. I have 5th and 6th in the NFC West as San Francisco and Seattle. Then I have the Eagles squeaking in at number 7. So, Derek, of my NFC playoff teams, who do you disagree with the strongest?
I like your Eagles, but they're not going to make the playoffs. I think that I like Jalen Hurts. good guy, not the NFL quarterback. And so I will disagree upon your Eagles. I know you can hate me later. You already rue the day that I ever speak. But go on, get ruined.
No, it's fine. It's a bit of a stretch. And a lot of this is reliant on the fact that I think the Washington football team and then the Giants kind of regress quite a bit. And I mean, looking at the Eagles' schedule, there are a lot of very, very winnable games. I mean, playing like here's who I have them beating. I have them beating the Falcons, the Panthers, the Raiders, the Lions, the Chargers at home, the Giants, the Jets, Washington again, the Giants again, and then the Cowboys in Week 18. Tell me that those games don't sound like, penciled in losses.
Somehow the Eagles are still going to do it, though.
Now, like I said, all these are, I have them losing, a few winnable games. I have them losing on the road to the Broncos. I do think that you guys take that. I have them losing on the road to, actually I have them, no, actually I didn't have the Giants taking, I had Washington taking a game at home. I think the Bucks do the double over them because they end up making the playoffs. And so I think the Bucks end up beating them twice. I'm losing to the Chiefs. I'm losing to the 49ers. I have a lot of very realistic losses here. Mm-hmm. I think that the Eagles team is probably the biggest surprise for me. Maybe there's a little bit of homerism, but I think that the NFC East is impossible to predict.
It's true.
So the easiest thing to do is say, you know what, this team is set to underperform. Watch them overperform. Well, let's go ahead and let's go to my stat leaders, who I think is going to finish at the top of certain things. For passing touchdowns, I have a 1 Justin Herbert. I think that the Chargers are going to have a very aired out offense, and I think that playing in a conference that is all about passing, I think we see big touchdown numbers from him. I actually think that him and Josh Allen are kind of neck and neck throughout the season. And I think one of them ends up finishing the yardage leader, and the other one ends up finishing the touchdown leader. So I kind of wavered back and forth on it. I have Devin Cook as my rushing leader. I think that, especially with the potential issues at quarterback, if COVID rears its ugly head, I think Devin Cook can potentially benefit from it, assuming, knock on wood, he doesn't get it. And that offense is able to go through and run like roughshod over some of their matchups, especially considering that Cook seems to find ways to get yards out of nothing. So I'm big on that. I think the reception leader ends up being Stephon Diggs. I think he goes back to back as the receptions leader. He had it last season by a good 7 or 8. And I think that the Bills are going to try to fight for that number 1 seed against the Chiefs, and they're going to be neck and neck. And I think that we're going to see big air it out games where he ends up snagging a whole bunch of catches. I have Devontae Adams as my receiving yards leader. I think he has a big season, and I think that the Rodgers-Adams connection is huge. And then my sack leader ends up being Myles Garrett. Again, I'm big on the Browns. I'm big on Myles Garrett. I think he feasts on, an old as heck Ben Roethlisberger. I think that he feasts on whoever it is that has to replace Lamar Jackson while he's injured. And I think he feasts on Joe Burrow. So those are my stat leader picks. Any surprises or anything that you want to disagree with? We'll go with you, Caleb.
I think that it's interesting. I know that in general, for passing touchdowns, I feel like we were all across the board with various names. Part of that is just who actually gets the ball into the end zone. Is it something where the Chargers somehow are not able to run by the red zone? Like, I know Hunter Henry isn't there anymore. I don't know if that makes it more of an issue or an issue where, maybe they go with a different personnel scheme with Lombardi. I mean, Lombardi is from the Sean Payton system, so they like to pass, they like to run. I don't know how they're going to score, but it's kind of we all pick people that are capable of the ball in the right people's hands and getting it into the end zone. So I mean, I don't think that Cook, Diggs, or Adams were reaches. So Herbert was the one that kind of surprised me the most.
Okay. Derek, any thoughts on those?
Devin Cook. I think that if you go to one-dimensional, that the defenses are just going to stack in the box, and he's going to have a great season. Not saying that he's going to be shut down completely, but I don't think he's going to get to the rushing yards that we need him to get to be the yards leader. Because I don't think that Cousins is good enough up there to do something else.
I think when Cousins starts, it's fine. It's just a matter of, and keep in mind, they also have a really good wide receiver core that I think is going to stretch the defense, even if Cousins isn't the one throwing the football. I feel like Cook, he always seems to find yards. He always seems to find the holes and find the yards. But, again, for me, it's all about staying healthy and staying off the COVID unable to play list.
Of course.
Well, let's go through the wild card games. So for the 6 games, I have the Chargers beating the Colts on the road, which I think is very similar to what I think is what Caleb had. And so what you had too, Derek, right? Oh, no, you had the Titans. Never mind.
I had the Colts out. So.
I have the Browns beating the Patriots 3-6. And then in my big surprise, I have the Ravens traveling into Buffalo with Lamar Jackson back at the helm and beating the Bills in the biggest upset for the playoffs, I think, throughout the entire thing. I think the Ravens match up very well against the Bills, and I feel like it's it would be a very, very tough game. And then on the flip side, on the NFC, I have the 49ers taking out the Eagles on the road. I had the Packers getting business done against the Seahawks at home in a very close game. Then I have the Buccaneers pasting the Cowboys in embarrassing fashion. What do you guys think about my Ravens over Bills take? Do you think if they meet in the playoffs, that you feel the same way about it that I do, that the Ravens match up very, very well against the Bills, or do you disagree with that?
I think part of what makes that matchup so exciting is the location. When you're playing up north, but near a lake, there's so many things that can happen to the passing game. You're already putting probably Marlon Humphrey on Stephon Diggs, shutting down Josh Allen's main connection. Singletary and Moss don't inspire anything in that running game, and that's what the Ravens do is running game. So you're going to tell me that, you might get Gus Edwards 20 carries and Lamar Jackson's going to probably take the rock 10 to 15 times in the quarterback run game, find some passes for first downs where they need it. I think that the script is very easy to write. So while I think that in general I would say, yes, the Bills are a better team, and I put it together where the Ravens can take them down, absolutely.
Any thoughts on that, Derek?
Yeah, I could see that happening. There's definitely some colored building plans out there on how to beat the Bills, and the Ravens definitely know they're well put together organization. And you keep the ball out of out of Josh Allen's hands, and you're going to do good things. So slow down the game, make it a lower scoring game, and that's going to lead to the Ravens being in the game at the end of the time.
No, I think it's a fair take. Well, let's talk about some awards. Let's go with some of the minor awards. As we hinted at the Derek prediction episode, I also have Patrick Surtain as my Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think that, again, he plays in a division where he can be opportunistic, where he can get picks, and I think that some of the games against the Chargers and against the Chiefs are very competitive, and he has maybe a pick six, maybe a really big hit, forced fumble, something to where he gets his name on everybody's mind. And pundits are talking about him, and ESPN is showing highlights. I think that he's going to be an excellent player for years to come in a very, very sound secondary. I have my offensive rookie of the year as Mac Jones, and I think that the Patriots are going to make the playoffs. I think they have a decently balanced offense. I really like what they've done in, picking up, tight ends in free agency. I think that, we're going to see a much more Belichick-esque style of offense that he probably favors as opposed to what he had to work around with Cam Newton, what Josh McDaniels had to work around with Cam Newton. I think we're going to see a much more comfortable Patriots team that is able to control the ball better and is able to capitalize on mismatches better. And I think Mac Jones ends up being the beneficiary of that. And I think that for all of the other quarterbacks, I don't feel as though, you saw one of the reasons why Herbert was so, obviously Burrow went down, but Herbert really benefited from the Chargers winning football games on, the back of his performances. And I think we're going to see a couple of those happen for Mac Jones where he stands out, and we're not going to see that as much for the other quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence plays for a bad team. And I think every other quarterback that came into the NFL with this most recent draft, they're not going to be guaranteed it. They're not getting a starting nod right off the bat, aside from Wilson, who I think is playing for an even worse Jets team. So I feel like it's all eyes are going to be on the quarterback. And again, the Steelers, I know like big on Najee Harris. I think he's going to be good. I don't think he's going to be offensive rookie of the year good. I don't think he's going to stand out enough to warrant getting the award. My comeback player of the year is Christian McCaffrey. I think he has a monster year. I think that offense goes completely through him. And I know Dak Prescott is the odds-on favorite, and it's very easy to pinpoint. But people forget that McCaffrey had just as brutal of an injury. And, it's one that people forget how good he is, how completely amazing he is. So I think that Dak maybe struggles early in the season and loses a little bit of steam. Again, winning the division's fine. He may still very well get the award, but I feel like in a lot of ways, McCaffrey is going to outshine him. Finally, my assistant coach of the year is Raheem Morris.
Yeah.
So I know that he's an established product in the NFL, which usually means that as an assistant coach, the attention you get is different, right? When you were a head coach going back to being an assistant. But I think that him taking over this Rams defense for the first year, he isn't going to miss a beat. If anything, they probably will look even better. And on back of the fact that I have them as the number one seed in the NFC, I think they win games through their defense. And he looks incredible doing it. Any thoughts on my Rookie of the Year picks or any of the other ones?
Yeah, so I think that you're wrong on CMC. I like him as a player, but I think that the Panthers are too well known that we're just gonna go stop Christian and make Sam Darnold beat us. And I'm not sure Sam Darnold can beat a fly, let alone another football team. With a Dak, he's got two teams in his division that he can just beat up on their defenses. And unfortunately, one of them is the Eagles. So, he can have two great games versus the Giants. The Washington football team has a good defense, so you can't do much there. But go make the Eagles look bad, and Dak's back. That's what you're going to see.
Do you agree with that, Caleb? Do you think that I know you had Dak as your comeback player of the year, but are you as down on CMC as Derek?
I mean, I do think CMC is going to definitely shine this year. There's a reason why he's the number one overall player for fantasy drafts this year. It's because he's a no-brainer option. He does well in the passing game. He does well in the running game. When you said that you think he might lead all players in yards from scrimmage, I think he's a front runner for that. So I wasn't trying to say that I thought Kamara was definitely there, but it's kind of that two-headed monster type role that they play. And let's not forget that the last year that we saw McCaffrey back in 2019, Newton was out for pretty much all of that year anyway, and they were playing with other scrubs at quarterback. Like Sam Darnold is like, a Lamborghini at quarterback compared to the quarterbacks they had in 2019, like Brandon Allen and stuff like that. So,
no, I mean that's true. I think that again, it's all going to hinge on how well if the Cowboys come out and win 12 games, 13 games, yeah, absolutely give that to Dak Prescott, because that means that he had a big year and was a big contributor to that. But I think Dak looks rough in all the Cowboys do not have a super easy schedule. And I think that there are instances where he looks rusty. And, especially the fact that they're opening up against the Bucs, I think that's probably going to kick off his comeback player of the year, running on a bit of a rough note. But let's go to finish off the playoffs before we get to the Super Bowl. So in the divisional, I have the Browns beating the Chargers at home. I have the Ravens. This is a spicy one. I have the Ravens beating the Chiefs on the road. This is back-to-back Ravens big road wins. This is a huge story. ESPN is like, oh, God, yes. Give me all of the story that we can run. And the Chiefs get bounced in the divisional after making back-to-back Super Bowls. I have the Packers going to Tampa Bay and getting the business done against Brady and the Bucs. And then finally, I have the Rams beating the 49ers at home. I feel like the Rams are, in my opinion, remained the best team in the division. I don't think the playoffs really changed much. And I think we see some of the limitations of Jimmy G. And that probably leads to some of the changes at quarterback after Lance was likely on the bench the whole season. Finally, through conference championships, I have the home teams winning. I have the Browns beating the Ravens. And then I have the Rams beating the Packers to set up a Rams-Browns Super Bowl. Yeah, you're shaking your head. I'm feeling it, man. I'm feeling it. I'm just absolutely feeling it. Any Browns aside, because I already know your guys' takes on the Browns. We've already done the rounds there. Browns. What do you think about my Ravens Road Warrior expectation?
I think that, kind of like I said about the Ravens upsetting the Bills. I mean, Harbaugh, when they've done well in the playoffs, they've normally haven't been at home. I mean, in general, the AFC North has just been a brutal division, and it doesn't matter if they've had to go through, the Denver Broncos on the road, or if they've had to go through the Patriots on the road, or the Colts on the road. Like, they've always had teams that were better regular season teams, even when they were shining in the playoffs. They would get road playoff wins. Harbaugh has them to his name, so I don't think that you're stretching things that much.
Okay.
I think that plus Ravens defense is not. It's a bit of a matchup nightmare for the Chiefs. Like, Humphrey's good, Peters is good. Probably putting one of them on Hill. You've got good linebackers. You've got tons of people who can rush the passer. It's going to be a game that's determined in the fourth quarter. I don't think that it's a runaway like some Chiefs fans would like to think it is.
Yeah. What do you think, Derek? Or is there another matchup that you're like, I don't know?
Any of the Browns games, but no, I will hold my my Ravens over the Chiefs.
Keep talking. I had to grab something.
Yeah. So, me personally, I'm not sure who beats the Chiefs. I think they're such a well-built organization. Okay, I was going to ask about this. Yes. So, didn't someone give you a Cleveland Browns hat accidentally, or like thought they were your team because of the orange?
This was actually a gift from my dad.
Okay.
The hat didn't fit. He got the hat. It didn't fit him very well. And he asked if I wanted it. He had only worn it. I don't know how often, but yeah, it actually has his name engraved on the side. Or
Tom's favorite hat team.
Yeah.
For those of you who are wondering about the reference.
But I thought I would put it on for the remainder of the episode.
Yeah, so I think the Chiefs are going to beat the Ravens if they meet in the playoff, especially if the Chiefs are the home team. That's a very loud stadium, and so but I'm usually wrong. So
it's a tough environment. You're not wrong. No, you're right here. It is a tough environment to play in. I do think that in my eyes, the Chiefs losing in the divisional feels very. They went to back-to-back Super Bowls, so I think the expectation is that they kind of just like walk to the Super Bowl again, and thoroughly underestimate a Ravens team that underperformed during the regular season. Caleb, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, completely different note. How on earth did all of us have a Rams-Packers NFC Conference Championship game?
I noticed that.
Is it that the Packers were the home field team last year and the Rams are definitely the uptick with Matthew Stafford? Like, I somewhat am just surprised that we all kind of I had the Bucks losing to the Rams. You had the Packers upsetting the Bucks. I feel like in general, if we said, "Hey, the Bucks got the band back together and they're not at least in the NFC Championship," people are gonna questions where does it go wrong?
I mean, think about how the playoffs played out last season, where the Bucks were a bit of a surprise after basically being just barely above average during the regular season, and they just happened to go on a good run. And once they got to the Super Bowl, once they got to the conference championship, it became more of a matter of Brady's been there, he's done that. For me, I think that it's tough, right? Because the Bucks haven't had that established winning mentality the way the Patriots did, where it was expected for them to be back, where it was expected for them to, the divisional might as well have been another regular season game. I think for a lot of Bucks players, there may be a bit of a hangover. And even though they have a good season, they don't have an amazing season. And I think that they just don't get it done the second time around. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but that's kind of how I looked at it.
That's fair. I just figured it was something we should at least comment on.
Yeah, no worries. Well, let's go ahead and let's do the final awards, and let's talk about who I think is going to win the Super Bowl. So my coach of the year is going to be Brandon Staley. If the Chargers win double-digit games and win a playoff game, how do you not give it to Staley? Right? I know there are a lot of other coaches that could very well earn it. I think that if the Bills do end up getting like the number one seed and make it all the way to, say, the conference championship, I think McDermott probably deserved it at some point, but it was really hard not to give it to Stefanski. But really, I have the Chargers winning 12 games, and I have Justin Herbert, being the passing leader. By all means, Staley would win Coach of the Year in that situation. I have Myles Garrett as my Defensive Player of the Year. I think he makes a huge impact. If I have him as the sacks leader, I think that he wins definitely. I think he shuts down some offenses, and a lot of eyes are on him. I have my Offensive Player of the Year as Justin Herbert. I called that actually, I think when we were talking about the Chargers a while back. And I mentioned that Herbert was my favorite to win the Offensive Player of the Year. And I think he absolutely earns it. But I think the MVP goes to Patrick Mahomes. And for me, it's a bit of an easy kind of a softball safe choice. But I think Patrick Mahomes is the most complete player in the NFL. And for me, it's more a matter of he enables everything. Yeah, Herbert looks basically he's the shiny new toy. He's the new kid on the block and has a massive season. But Mahomes simply wills the team to win. And I think on the back of getting the number one seed and being the de facto best team in the NFL for a huge stretch of the year, that he ends up getting the MVP. Again, you're probably going to point out Myles Garrett, but any surprises on this list, or do you guys kind of feel the same way I do about Brandon Staley? We'll go to Derek first.
Yeah, so I want to echo your Herbert love. I have followed this kid for the last few years. When he made the decision to return back to Oregon, and see what he could do. 'Cause when he was going to come out, he was going to be like the number one overall. He was, although he was very well hyped up, but he went back and um, he's turned in. He's a better player than I gave him credit for. I don't know if the Chargers just uh, suit him well, or if that offense is tailor made for him. But he is a great quarterback that I hate to see twice a year for the Broncos. But if I was not a Broncos fan, I would be a fan of Justin Herbert. And please give me 2 scoops of the Herbert.
What do you think, Caleb? Any thoughts on on Brandon Staley, Myles Garrett, Herbert, or Mahomes? Because I think Mahomes was your MVP as well, right?
He was.
Yeah.
So, not going to necessarily bring up anything terribly interesting there. I was curious. You've got Garrett leading the league in sacks. He's the defensive player of the year. Does he clear 20? Is he put Strahan's record in jeopardy of the 22.5? I mean, we've got the extra game.
I think he comes close. I think he has some, like a couple monster performances against the Bengals. I think that the Browns have a very favorable schedule for him to get some serious pressure off the line. And I think he has a couple like big multiple sack games. I think he very well threatens the record. And I feel like in the neighborhood of, 19, 20, 21. I don't think he quite gets there. But I think that there's a lot of momentum off of a couple of really big games where all eyes are on him for that award and him like chasing that record. Maybe there's even like a spotlight on it, like ESPN does some thing because ESPN loves those stories.
That's true. That's very true. Miles versus Michael or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a segment. We could copyright Miles versus Michael.
Yeah, too late, ESPN. You already missed out. Well, let's go ahead and let's finish the episode off with my Super Bowl winner. So again, I have the Rams against the Browns. So if you're watching on YouTube, you see I'm wearing my Browns hat. They lose the Super Bowl by a lot. I think the Rams are my overwhelming favorite to basically go all the way. And I think this ends up being a high-profile Super Bowl. A lot of good stories with Matt Stafford finally making it to the big dance and having some success, and then the whole Baker Mayfield like being such a divisive personality. But I think it's a game where the Rams pretty much shut down a lot of what the Browns want to do, and it ends up being a double-digit win for the Rams. They are my overwhelming favorite to win the Super Bowl. And I don't know what I knocked down whenever I threw my hat, but I'm sure it would be worth it.
So just one question for the Browns when they're in the Super Bowl. Which way does Baker Mayfield have his hat on media day?
To the left.
Okay, so it's not backwards. It's not.
No, it's kind of like back and to the left a little bit.
Okay. Colin Cowherd, you heard it here. Yeah. Baker Mayfield is not going to be a hat backwards guy.
It's gonna be slightly to the left. What do you think, Caleb? Do you so keep in mind my path for the Browns to make it to the Super Bowl had them beating the Patriots at home, had them beating the Chargers at home, and had them beating the Ravens at home. So they managed to actually have home field advantage despite being the 3rd seed in the conference. So kind of a weird path, but that's the reason why I was okay with the Browns actually making it, is because, all of a sudden with the elimination of the Bills against the Ravens, and then the Ravens taking out the Chiefs, that, they finally get to this basically a 3rd time's a charm. And the Browns seem to do pretty well at 3rd time's a charm games.
Well, and I felt like in general, anytime you're matching up against someone again who you've played twice before, you know what a lot of that game plan is going to be. You know how to win and take advantage of them. And that's for both sides. So at some point, it's you know, okay, who's at home? You know, who are the star players? I believe that Garrett goes out and sacks Lamar on a big play where the Ravens are trying to come back. Absolutely. I mean, I think that especially being able to stay home because we know that the Cleveland fans are hungry for this, that path makes sense. I do think in general the Rams, there's just so much to like. There's so much to like about that team, and it's really tough to not have them there. Like, it's easy to look at how much they were able to win under Jared Goff, who is not good, and go, they have Matthew Stafford, who, I mean, we're all presuming health.
Mm-hmm.
So a healthy Matthew Stafford, a 17-game season should be at least a nice level of 12 to 14 wins. I think we all feel like division threat and playoff threat for the Rams. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Any final thoughts, guys, before we call it an episode on any of what I've said?
Let's see what happens.
Are you ready for some football?
I know it's getting so close. It's getting so close. Well, those are my predictions. And if you've been listening this past week, then you've heard Derek's and then you've heard Caleb's. So if you feel strongly one way or the other about any of our predictions, please let us know on Twitter. If you go to the Brodie Sports Talk Twitter account, which is just at Brodie Talk, there are going to be links to mine, Caleb's, and Derek's respective Twitter handles. Feel free to tag us in anything that you want to call out in regards to anything that we've said, from divisional predictions to playoff predictions to awards to anything. Please, by all means, take us through the ringer for these predictions. That is why we put them out there. If you want to find all of our social media platforms, all of our merch, all the different podcast platforms that we happily broadcast to, it's all in our link tree, linktr.ee/Brodie Talk. My merchandise challenge still exists. It's still out there. Nobody's really taken us up on it, and we'll see. But that's it. That's it for us. On behalf of Caleb and Derek, my name is Sean. We are Brodie Sports Talk. We are signing out. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.